That brings me to EEOC versus Henry's Turkey. Henry's Turkey involves a group of about 30 to 32 men who were, I'm trying to do this in non-prejudicial language, so bear with me while I search for the right word. Henry's Turkey is an organization out of Texas who in the 1960s employed approximately 30 to 32 men with intellectual disabilities, who they contracted out to do turkey evisceration work in Iowa. They were put into and lived in an old schoolhouse where they sort of all lived, all 30, 32 of them lived, and they lived there for about 30 years. In 2009, when the whole incident came to light, which led to Henry's Turkey, they shut the schoolhouse down, finding that it was hazardous, that there was infestations of insects, that the roof leaked, that it was a unsafe place for people to live. That's where they lived for a long period of time. They went and they worked alongside at the turkey evisceration plant persons without disabilities. And they worked along side by side. They did the same work. The employees were subject to verbal and physical harassment. But what has been held, and which the court has held twice, is that these employees were paid a extraordinarily substandard wage. They in fact were paid $65 a month. Month in, month out, $65. Now, the employer got money for their work. You know, they were working through different organizations and they were reimbursed. But the employer said that the additional money that was being received was to be paid to the employer, was to be credited to the employer for the shelter and the care and kind of these employees. In other words, that infested, leaky old school. It should also be pointed out that these workers were receiving Social Security and SSI, but they were all that money was being signed over to the employer. So this is going on, and this is going on today. Now, what I want you to be very aware of is we've had enormous successes. And I can tell you about some wonderful things that I see happening with employer groups and wonderful strides. But we always have to be watching out because things like the Chuck E. Cheese case and things like the Henry's Turkey cases aren't novels. They're not happening in fiction. They're happening in today's world. And unless we keep our eyes open, they can continue to be going on. Henry's Turkey went on for 30 years. For 30 years. Men, workers, were living in those conditions. We have to keep our eyes open because we don't know, without watching for it, that something like this isn't happening in our neighborhoods, in our schools, around us.